Try now.
Okay.
Who's starting?
I guess that if you want to just read the title and we can each introduce ourselves in order as it's listed.
Okay. Hold on, let me get there. Okay, so increasing physical activity through self-monitoring, goal setting, and feedback. And this presentation is being done by Diana Esler, Aria King, Paul Murphy, Hishaya Price, and Alyssa Urban. And then I don't have anything to move on to. I would need to point back.
Skip it for now.
To do what?
Do you want to skip it for now?
Yeah, if we can, just because
Okay.
I'm not overly prepared.
That's okay.
Then I can go to, let's see, let me find it. Okay. So now we're going to talk about the original study, which is increasing physical activity through self-monitoring, goal setting, and feedback by Matthew P. Norman. Okay. Then we go to the next slide. So for this study, for healthy non-obese adults, 3 females and 1 male, ages 39, 47, 55, and 59 years old. And wait, where am I? Oops. Okay. So the materials used, it was a pedometer, and the operational definition was a step was defined by any activity that resulted in a count recorded and displayed on the pedometer. I don't see this presentation, do you?
I think you probably had to pull it up in a separate window because I can't. Oh, it's gone completely.
It is gone. I don't see it.
So,
There.
okay. Okay. So the experimental design they used was a multiple baseline across participants in an AB reversal design. Although one participant withdrew from the study before a reversal could be conducted. Okay, oh no, where am I? So in the original study for the baseline, the pedometers were masked, sealed with a tape. And once a week, the experimenter met with each participant and recorded the daily totals using the 7-day memory feature. And then they arranged return to baseline for only 3 of the 4 participants. For the intervention, they used goal setting, self-monitoring, and feedback. And for the first intervention, daily step goals were calculating with the average number of steps taken per day during the previous week. And goals were increased if participants met the daily goal for at least 4 occasions. And during this phase, the participants wore their pedometers unmasked, and they reported their daily steps via email. And the experimenter responded their email with feedback like, good job, keep it up. Or he said, give a little more effort, or you can do it if the goal wasn't met. For this part of the interventions, also they receive graphic feedback using a single time series graph showing participants' performance with recent and evolved lines. And they also received vocal and verbal feedback from the experimenter And they met face-to-face, and they discussed the direction of the data, and praise and encouragement was given to continue increasing the number of steps. For the IOA, the experimenter used the 7-day memory feature of the pedometer and checked daily totals for the week and compared them with the self-reports. And the agreement scores were calculated by dividing the numbers of agreements by disagreements plus agreements and multiplying it by 100. And it resulted in 94% mean agreement across participants. For treatment fidelity, it was conducted for self-monitoring and daily email feedback. And it was calculated by dividing the number of days on which participants did not report a daily step total by the total number of intervention days and multiplying it by 100. And it resulted in 77%, 100%, 1,300, and 98% of the participants' treatment fidelity. And they also conducted a social validity survey at the end of the study, and assessing the participants' satisfaction with the intervention. So for the results, the step totals increased for all participants during both intervention phases and decreased when the intervention was removed. Although their steps were very, very variable and did not correlate to their individual daily goals. However, participants believed the intervention was useful and helped them increase physical activity. So now we're going to talk about our study, and for our project, the purpose is to use self-monitoring, goal setting, and feedback to increase physical activity to provide health benefits to participants. Okay, so now we're going to Ariel, who is going to discuss the methods.
Okay, so I'll discuss the methods of our project. We had 5 participants who took place in the replication. There's 4 females and 1 male. Our ages are 24, 26, 28, 30, and 34 years old. Like the participants in the original study, we were all in good health with no significant injuries or physical disabilities. And prior to this class, we did not know each other. Due to the fact that we were in an online class, all of the participants in the study coordinated remotely from different locations in the United States, which was a difference from the original study. As a result, our setting was from our home cities in Arizona and Central and Southern California. All of our participants collected data while conducting their regular daily routines, which was one reason why we found this study attractive, because we all have very different schedules, and this allowed us to keep our schedule the same while still participating in the intervention. And again, we collaborated remotely using GroupMe, application, email, and Google Hangouts. The materials we needed for this study were a Fitbit pedometer. We chose that partly because some of our participants already had one available, and also because they're a more updated technology than what was used in Norman's study in 2009. And it allowed us to track our data off of our phones or computers and sync it more easily. We needed opaque tape to cover the display of the Fitbit pedometer during baseline phases because the self-monitoring wasn't available during those phases. And we also needed access to lots of technology, including email, Google Docs, Google Sheets, Google Slides, the GroupMe messaging application, Microsoft Word, and Microsoft Excel. The behavior that, as we defined it, was measuring changes in daily step count. And we used the operational definition of the total steps recorded from the moment an individual affixes the Fitbit to their clothing upon leaving bed in the morning to the moment they remove the Fitbit and place it on a stable surface 12 hours later. The reason we use this definition instead of the one exactly used in Norman's study was because, again, we all have really different schedules. And so we found it necessary to operationally define a day as a 12-hour period from the moment you wake up until 12 hours later when you take the Fitbit off. Our data collection was permanent product recording using the Fitbit, and it tracked our daily step totals. We wore it for 12 hours each day to fit the operational definition. We had baseline data reporting after the end of each baseline phase and intervention daily reporting for, during the intervention, we reported daily what our steps were to each other. So we use an AB-AB reversal design due to time constraints, and you guys can let me know if I shouldn't say this. Due to time constraints, we did not implement the multiple baseline used in Norman's study because we felt it wouldn't be practical for this class. They had multiple weeks and very limited time constraints, and we didn't have that luxury. So we did implement the reversal to show experimental control. During baseline phases, participants mask their Fitbit display for at least 5 days and track their daily step count without self-monitoring, goal setting, feedback, so without the intervention variable. After 5 days, they check the data for stability just at the end of the day. So again, it didn't introduce self-monitoring, it was just at the end of the day to see if their previous 5 days were stable. If they were, they went on to the intervention. If they didn't, they masked the Fitbit again and continued to collect data for at least 3 more days, checked it for stability, and so on. One problem we ran into, again, was the schedule variation, and because of that, some participants never achieved stability, but what we were looking for was a dramatic change in either level or variability once they hit the intervention phase, because it wasn't practical for them to actually achieve a stable baseline. So that moves on to intervention. We use goal setting as one aspect of our intervention, just like Norman. These goals are calculated by finding the mean of the initial baseline data. And if the goal was met on 4 out of 5 sessions during the first intervention phase, then individual goals were increased during the second intervention phase. The second component of the intervention was self-monitoring. Participants unmask their Fitbit and track progress towards their goal throughout the day. So throughout the day, you could be tracking your steps and seeing if you needed to go for an extra walk or if you needed to plan in some exercise within the day in order to meet your goal. And the final component of our intervention had 2 different phases. One was daily. The feedback that we received every evening was based on what we messaged our group members. So we would tell them, my daily step goal was whatever your goal was, and today I achieved however many steps you achieved. And group members responded with feedback that either encouraged continued effort towards the goal if you did not meet the goal, or praised your efforts if you did meet the goal. The second part of the feedback component was a face-to-face meeting via Google Hangouts, where we met to receive vocal verbal feedback on performance and review a single time series graph of individual performance. Then we discussed whether or not each participant could increase their goal or if they needed to keep it the same for the second intervention, and decided what that goal would be if it did increase. And that actually is the end of our methods, and we're going to move on to talking about inter-observer agreement.
All right, hi everybody, my name's Kashia. So as a group, we all participated in the inter-observer agreement. And so basically we each took a photo of our intervention and we each posted a photo into a Google Documents table. And so with the Documents Google table, we were all able to see all of our results. And so with the screenshot of corresponding self-reported daily steps, we were able to kind of, we were all able to share that data to make sure that it was correct. And participants compared both entries to determine if the permanent product display matched the spreadsheet data entry, and electronically we all signed our names to indicate that agreement. Moving on, each of us reported different steps based off of our intervention phases. So it looks like we all collected for at least 30% of each participant sessions. Alyssa reported 78,694 steps, and her actual steps was the same, 78,694. And so her percentage was actually 100%. And so for Ariel, she reported 62,442 steps, and actual data was 62,442 steps. Inter-observer agreement percentage was at 100. Diana, she reported 46,367 steps, and her actual step goal was 46,367 steps with 100% inter-observer agreement. For myself, I calculated 52,305 steps, and my actual step goal was 52,305 steps, which led to 100% inter-observer agreement. And for Paul, he reported 65,359 steps, and his actual step goal was 65,359 with 100% inter-observer agreement. And so now we will discuss treatment fidelity. Who's moving on to that one?
Did we have you doing that, or do you not want to? Either way.
I think, wasn't Paul doing treatment fidelity? No?
I don't know.
Oh, maybe.
Oh,
Right.
sorry, I didn't write that part down. I was like, but I can do treatment fidelity. So treatment fidelity, we basically all had a checklist with 25 items. And so kind of throughout the course of our study, from day one all the way to the end of our study, we kind of kept track of baseline, intervention, vocal, verbal, and graphic feedback. We also kept track of our inter-observer agreement data and intervention. And overall, treatment fidelity, it was calculated by determining the percentage of total tasks completed by all participants. And then after that, just kind of calculating a percentage to incorporate into our study.
I don't want to interrupt. I was thinking, but I am. Sorry. In the original study, I didn't realize that they had, I don't know how I missed this, they calculated treatment fidelity just by how many days people reported. I think we might want to say something about how the reason we did treatment fidelity this way was to be more rigorous, because then it makes it sound better for not copying it exactly.
To stay on track.
Yeah, and well, and you could say something along the lines of like the Norman study, they reported just whether or not the steps were reported. And we could just say that we also did that, but people reported steps 100% of the days. So that wasn't really a good measure of treatment fidelity because there was so much more that went into the treatment.
Got it. Okay.
Sounds
So
good.
you could at least like reference like, yes, everybody did report 100% of the days, but we went one step further because we're awesome.
Yeah, so, and we can determine that through our IOA data. So,
And also,
Okay.
just so, since we took a pause there, so for the inter-observer agreement, I did 30% of the total number of days that were tracked. So that's 7 days for Dana and then 8 days for everybody else. So it's not our like total.
I
steps
know I
throughout the
messed
entire
up.
thing.
I realized it wasn't our total.
All right, no, I just wanted to make sure that like everybody knew that your steps weren't that low. Your steps are all a lot higher than that.
Okay, I was a little surprised. I was like, oh, thicker than I thought. I also think maybe we don't need to read every single number because that's a terrible tongue twister for you.
I know, I was like trying to calculate. Okay, so how should we report that then? Just say that we all hit
Yeah,
100%?
100%. Yeah,
Whoops.
I think so.
Okay,
And say like everybody's reported totals for the 30% match their actual totals. So we all had 100% IOA.
got it. Okay. So then the treatment fidelity, I'll just kind of tie in Norman's study and how they originally didn't have, they originally didn't calculate the percentage. We just used that for our sake.
Yeah. I'll just put in a bullet point, number of.
So we still don't see the screen, huh?
Wait, do you guys? I didn't know if you guys wanted me to present or not. I thought you guys were gonna do it at first. But I
Oh,
can-
sorry. Do you want to go? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just didn't want to forget that.
Oh, for the treatment fidelity?
Yeah, maybe go ahead.
Oh,
Whoever.
is that
wants
the
to
last
do
slide for treatment fidelity or is there another one?
it. Oh, wait, no, you just did it. So,
Yeah, so that was the treatment fidelity. So now it's the graph. So now we just kind of
Yeah.
present our graphs.
so if we can just go in order.
You know what I was thinking? I don't know if, so instead of me discussing limitations, when we discuss our graphs, you know, that way we're able to see, you know, up and down data for all of us. Should we like give our own limitations?
I think that maybe not do a slide for individual limitations, but when you're talking about it, you can. And then we'll talk about like overall, these are the limitations at the end.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, so I'll do an overall. Okay.
Okay, so are we each talking about our individual graphs?
Mhm.
Okay. So, let me find my results real quick. So my daily step totals increased during the first intervention phase in comparison to the first baseline phase. Due to a significantly higher second baseline, my second intervention phase actually decreased when compared to that baseline. One of the limitations that was present within this portion of the study, so this phase, was that I have a variable schedule at work. And so some days I'm working with clients and, you know, I'll be in the field all day long, and then other days I'm sitting at my desk. So that accounts for some of that variability here. Overall, if you look at the total data, I do have an ascending trend line, and so my daily physical activity did increase as a result of this study.
Okay. So for me, as you can see from the data, the intervention was not effective. Essentially, I had very flat trend across the board with a few spikes here and there. I also really struggled with scheduling. I was in a wedding and on spring break, and so I had some really big spikes because I had the free time to do things like go for a long hike. And then there are other days where all of my time is accounted for and I wasn't able to meet my daily step goal. Overall, I would say this is probably the main contributor to the fact that I seriously don't know what to say. I feel like none of that makes sense. I will practice that. On to Diana. Oh, I need to talk about my range and mean. So again, looking at the table for the mean and range of each phase, you can see that the mean for each phase is within 200 to 300 steps of each other, which is fairly minimal when you're talking about tens of thousands of steps each day. And I don't know. I need to practice that. I don't know what's relevant to say. That's why I sent her an email, because I feel like my data is nothing. And what do you say about your data when you're like, it just didn't work?
I feel like the range would be the important part to show that like the variability changes. It's like during your whatever the intervention phase, your range is pretty big, right? But then during your baseline, it's pretty minimal for the first one. I feel like that'd be like the only thing to say. I just think it's something that's like all you need is just something to talk about, right? I don't think.
Okay, so I don't like place a value judgment on anything. I just say what it is.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I would just
Yeah.
say this is what it is.
Okay.
Because you
Okay.
can't control your steps. I mean, you can, but it's when you're in baseline, like you can't control that. So, you know, it's not your fault that you were busy and had to do things.
Yeah. And I don't know if that's a relevant thing to say. Like, I can tell you why each step was what it was each day, but I don't know if that's relevant, because the whole point is that the reason the steps are what they are is not because of the intervention.
Right. It's just due to personal limitations. That's what it is. It's just a barrier.
Okay. So I can just say that, so looking at the mean across all phases, the mean is fairly stable and doesn't change between baseline and intervention. The range, however, does change fairly dramatically. During baseline, there's a range, during both baseline phases, there's only a range of around 2,000. But then during the intervention phases, that range is dramatically different. So it goes from 16,318 steps on my highest day of the first intervention, all the way down to 1,231 steps on the lowest day of the intervention. So there's actually more variability during the intervention, is the opposite of what we'd like to see, which would be less variability due to the control of the independent variable, which is not present. Okay, here we
I
go.
think that's perfect.
Okay, cool.
Alrighty.
So do I share the screen or no?
I think Paul can just keep it up the whole time, right?
Yep. So Diana would be.
Okay. Let me find it. My own. Okay. So my baseline was pretty stable, as you can see, and I had quite a big increase for my intervention level with an ascending trend line, and a significant decrease in the second baseline, and again a significant increase in my return to intervention with that ascending trend line. I think the intervention was pretty successful because you can see a change in level in both phases, and a decrease in level when the intervention was removed. It was also very stable, low variability, and it was pretty consistent. What else? I think that's it, right?
Yeah, I think that sounds good.
That's, so, okay, so now we move to Keisha.
So, all right. So for my first baseline, my initial step goal on average was 5,671 steps. So during my first intervention, you can see that it increased quite dramatically. So for the first intervention, let's see, my steps ranged from 3,700 to 5,800. And so from there, I went back to baseline where it decreased dramatically, and then back to intervention where you can see it also decreased, which is a descending trend line due to limitations because I do drive a lot for work, and I traveled quite a bit over the weekends, which limited me from reaching my daily step goal.
Right. So for my baseline, in the first week or so, there was a lot of variability, a lot of ups and downs. But during my intervention, my first intervention phase, it tended to flatten out a little bit. There wasn't as much variability, but that continued on through my next baseline, and then followed by another variable but descending intervention phase. My average stayed relatively even across phases. My baseline and first intervention both had very similar averages, but the range was rather variable. Overall, I don't think there was much change due to the intervention. And then I'll figure out more stuff to say about that. And I haven't read the conclusion yet.
Okay. Are we missing the goals?
Yeah, that's a good point.
We should add that, huh?
Yeah, maybe add it into the, because everyone's graph says ABA reversal design for their name. And maybe you could put like ABA reversal design across phases and then like write the goal for phase 1 or goal for first intervention and goal for second intervention in the caption.
Yeah.
Oh, like our step goal.
Yeah, I'm just adding Ariel's goal for both intervention phases was 7250.
Okay. Yeah, I'll go in and add all of that to my graph.
Yeah,
And then I'll add my average and range. It's definitely helpful when you're able to see it next to the graph, so we know what we're talking about.
So if you guys just want to add if you just give me the average and range for each one, I'll just make one of these and add it to everybody like next to your graphs. Because I can just plug in the numbers, or you guys can just copy and paste it into yours and then change the numbers.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, because I like the way that yours looks.
Yeah.
If that works for you.
Yeah.
My table's already in there, so all those numbers would be there for you. Paul, what time are we at right now?
You know, I don't remember where the timer is on this, and I didn't start my own timer. But we've also stopped and talked for a little bit, so I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I was curious.
I want to say we've talked, well, without, talking in between, at least 30 minutes. We're at 30 minutes.
Yeah, it's pretty
At least.
If you stop it right now, will it show you how long the video is? Because I think it leaves you in the call. It just stops the video.
Yeah, here.